Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, and we have a guest host tonight in for Michael Newton is Ernie Furt of FL Montreal. You know him, of course, as a regular contributor to the program, and this is his first chance co-hosting today's Entrepreneur. Ernie, welcome.
Thank you. It's going to be fun, I hope.
Absolutely. It is going to be fun. And let's start, I guess, by the thing everyone's talking about this week. It is, of course, I guess a semi-lockdown sort of situation, especially if you're in certain businesses. The restaurant industry in particular, that is on ice for the better part of the month. What are your thoughts on this this sort of shockwave in the restaurant industry and their options for the second wave?
They have to just extend the options that they had in the first wave. They have to adapt. They have to change. They have to adjust on the fly and get themselves into a place where they can do takeout food and kind of differentiate themselves from the other guy down the street also doing takeout food, by changing their menus and things like that, and and communicating probably through social media in order for them to have the most sales that they possibly could.
And what about in terms of long-term survival? I mean, how long can this go on under these circumstances? Is the federal government help enough, do you think?
Well, the federal government help is okay, but the provincial government yesterday announced some help too. I haven't yet read through it, but there is some help coming from the provincial government as well for the restaurant sector. They got to limit their expenses. They got to do what you do in situations where you're not making a lot of money. You got to cut down on expenses, make sure your product is good, and do marketing in order to get it out there.
And they do have delivery at least, so that's one source of revenue.
Delivery and pickup and curbside pickup, whatever the people want at the end of the day, because you have to give them what they want, because if you don't give them what they want and you give them what you want, you may have another thing coming.
This story from Fast Company, the business model that could save fashion and why it isn't everywhere. You're a fashionista, Ernie. What are your thoughts on this story?
I think it's very interesting because what they want to do is stop the mass producing of fashion garments, and in the pandemic times, people are going back to basics. So it's kind of easier to make the garments instead of making high fashion garments. You're making like regular stuff, and what they're looking at is on-demand manufacturing, which I find interesting. So only when an order is placed will there be a contact made to the manufacturer who'll do it. It's kind of like almost the made-to-measure suits, but on a smaller scale.
How do you scale that? I mean, it seems inefficient.
Well, you have to. It seems inefficient, but at the end of the day, the efficiency is built in, because if you go and you manufacture a whole 10,000 pieces, you won't necessarily sell all of them. So you have to factor that into your price. So doing this on-demand manufacturing, you're gonna manufacture at a smaller scale. There's going to be less waste, and people will be able to get what they want. The only thing that you have to convince is you have to convince your suppliers.
Speaking of new sort of innovative models in retail, this is also for Fast Company, the rise of dark stores. So first, what is a dark store, and why in particular is Whole Foods experimenting with them?
Well, a dark store is where they don't put on the lights. No, I'm kidding. A dark store is basically what they do is they take an existing store and turn it into kind of no frills. So it won't be pretty. There'll be a bunch of aisles. People will go in there, and it won't be consumers that are going in there. It'll be runners going in there and picking up all the stuff that you order online and packing orders for you. It'll be organized in a little bit of a different fashion, so everything is efficient, and it's going to be like a warehouse, effectively.
So this is meant to I guess, brace for more online sales. But are these dark stores meant to be at least sometimes consumer friendly as well, or they just want the customers out?
Well, it's something want the customers out. Because of the pandemic, people are switching more to online purchasing. You have, I even noticed at the regular grocery stores, they've carved out certain parking spots for online pickup orders. When you go to the grocery stores, you see a whole bunch of employees running around, picking up groceries, putting it into a shopping cart. So they're doing the shopping for you. So this model is designed to do that, to do the shopping for you, pick out what you need, and then pack it up and it's ready to go when you're ready to come pick it up. It's kind of like the old car order service that you used to get at Steinberg's years ago.
One thing to mention, by the way, you are a tax partner at FL, Ernie. So the news this week is that the CERB payments have ended as of this week. What is available for people going forward now, especially those who have been affected by the pandemic?
It's a modified EI program that's going to kind of echo the CERB a little bit. So people will have to apply onto that. There may be different criteria. People have to look at it, look at the website of the CRA and check out what's available to them because, they're trying to keep things going. People, some people cannot work. And now with this red zone that we're in, there may be even more people who will be out of work potentially.
So this is not going to be anything, this program is nothing like the universal basic income that was talked about for a few months?
No, I don't believe that. They're not there yet. Eventually they may get there, but not yet.
What's your position on that? Do you think it's an interesting idea?
I think it's interesting. It could be a disincentive for certain people to work because during the pandemic, people who were operating their stores were looking to hire people and people didn't want to come into work. They were either afraid of the pandemic, they were getting money. So, certain of their expenses were being covered. So there wasn't a big incentive for them to go work for that money. So that it may cause that kind of malaise in the community. Hopefully not, but it could. It's a potential.
And Ernie, coming up on the show, some more resources for business, especially if you're dealing with the banks. So Patrick Sullivan, trustee at FL, will be along to talk about banker tolerance during the pandemic and also alternate sources of financing. So you do want to stay tuned for that. But first, let's get to our profile this evening. You've seen the name. It's a long-standing shoe place in Montreal. Angelo Rubino is with us, Vice President of Rubino Shoes. Angelo, welcome to CJD.
Thanks for having me.
So you are part of the retail landscape in this city. First, how long has Rubino been around? And for those that don't know it, tell us about your business.
Oh gosh, I could talk for an hour. So let's try to cut to the chase. Rubino is a shoe retailer. So we sell branded footwear for the whole family. We have 32 brick and mortar stores and an online store, rubinoshoes.com. Our stores are located all in Quebec. So we're a Quebec-based company. We find to have a lot of success in the regions, so a bit outside of Montreal. We're in our headquarters are in the east end of Montreal. My dad started the company about 35 years ago, I think. Yeah, 35 years ago. He was an Italian immigrant, and here we are. I mean, I run the business today with my brother, my twin brother actually, and my sister. So it's a family business here in Montreal.
That's interesting. The business transfer from generation to generation. But you weren't always in the shoe business, were you, Angelo?
Exactly. So my dad went to the school of life, as he likes to say. So he did not study. I was fortunate enough to go to college. I went to law school, U of M, Université de Montréal. I graduated. I took my title. I went to the bar school. I practiced law for about 2 years, but the retail calling was too strong. I just came back to the family business in 2011. I'm not going to lie. I was always involved. As a child, I started working in the stores. I was 7, 8 years old. So for me, retail is in my blood. That's what I like to do. So I like to say that I'm a lawyer by trade, but I sell shoes for a living.
So at least you're able to use some of your legal skills in, when you're looking at any new locations, any of those things, or looking at varying contracts and stuff. So that allows a little vertical integration for you. So that's good. I understand that you like to own your own stores too. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Real estate was one of our big moves. A few years back, we realized that it's better to own our four walls and to invest into real estate, because we were paying some substantial rents for mall. So our model is to be outside of mall, and we usually have like a standalone building. So we started projects around 10 years ago, and our real estate portfolio is pretty substantial. We have about half of our stores that are located in our own building. So our real estate division is Rubino Holding. And we have also tenants such as restaurants and so on and so forth. So it is tough right now, let me tell you, for restaurant business, especially in the greater Montreal area. But yeah, so we have the division of real estate, the shoe business, and we're also involved a little bit in the restaurant business. So my family is part owner of 4 Mr. Puffs franchise. So we're sort of diversified. And on Sunday, we're opening a little grocery store in Villeray in Montreal on l'avenue Villeray and Drolet. So we're trying to always diversify. I mean, this is what we've realized. The shoe business is great, but you can't put all your eggs in the same basket, right?
You can't put all your shoes on the same foot either. You know. So what has your biggest win been since you joined the family business?
There's been so many wins. I like to win. I mean, I'm a competitor. I think, well, the first move when we decided to go online, my dad is pretty conservative, let's say traditional.
How did you convince him? How did you convince him? Because a lot of old guys, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, it was the funniest thing in the world. When we started being involved at full time, my dad said, he said, you guys are spending more than you're making. So in 6 months, you'll be out of business. So we sort of told my dad, we're like, listen, Dad, you built this business for us. He's like, absolutely, I did this for you guys. So we're like, well, let us do what we can. Either we take it to the moon or we bring it to the ground. And we decided to invest. So when we took the business in 2011, let me tell you, it wasn't great. But we started investing to, let's say, have a better presence online, because we had a website, but it wasn't transactional. And my father did not believe that people would buy shoes online, because according to him, you need to feel the product. You want to try them on. We know today that over 20% of our business is done through rubinoshoes.com, and we're selling across Canada. So for us to be fully integrated and to have an online platform and to have brick and mortar it's great. I mean, especially in Quebec, our stores became sort of like, warehouses for the online stores. So you see a lot of customers going online, buying shoes, returning to the store, doing an exchange, buying in store. So we have that 360 solution. So that was, I think, one of the major wins. And I believed in social media so bad. I mean, I was on Facebook when it started. So I had created a page, and my family thought it was a waste of time. I was snapping pictures, and I used to do everything myself. And we had like at one point 600 followers, and I was like, God, this is awesome.
How many do you have now?
65,000.
Fantastic.
Just on Facebook, Instagram about 15K. So, follow us, Rubino Shoes. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and we're doing a bunch of cool stuff. All the content is created by us. We do a lot of different things, videos. So I think bringing that twist, and I think social media really took our business to the next level, because not a lot of people knew that we moved from the traditional mom and pop shop, which we were. My dad used to be in the private import. So we had a lot of private label in store. We had not a lot of brands. So when we decided to make that move, at first it was extremely hard, because those brands didn't even consider us. To get a brand like Nike or Converse or even Michael Kors, it's really hard. So when we reached out to them, there was not many brands calling back. So we had to do a big work where we decided to change our logo, change the design of our stores, to have a better online platform. And when we finally got one brand, when the first brand said yes, that's when all the other brands started falling and opening their doors. And today we're 100% branded. So that was a big win, to move away from private import, which is really tough, and you need to do a big volume, to a more branded footwear. And you guys could see that today, most people like to wear branded shoes. Not a lot of people are going towards the private brands.
Especially at these times, I'm sure that name recognition goes a long way. How have you guys been handling the pandemic? How have you guys been surviving? And what are your thoughts on adapting the retail business models going forward?
Of course, listen, struggle to me is great, because everybody's been struggling, especially retail. And I think through struggle, that's when we learn the most. So in this pandemic, we've learned so much, and we had no choice to adapt. And I think Ernie said before, adapt or die. And that's exactly right. So it forced us to, invest even more into our online platforms, to offer free returns, which we didn't have before. And we've put our minimum purchase online to qualify for free shipping to zero. So any order qualifies for free shipping. So we had to negotiate with partners like Canada Post, which they've put cap on our account because we were shipping too many parcels a day. So it is for sure. I mean, it's been a real roller coaster, but for us, it just proved that our business was pandemic proof. I think that we were doing extremely well before the pandemic, and there was so much uncertainty, but because of our online store, we were able to maintain. And when the stores reopened, everybody was afraid of, are people going to come back? Well, guess what? They did. And our online store kept going also. So for us, we found that it was actually good. I mean, it forced us to evolve even faster. And I know it's not easy for everybody, but most retailers that are struggling today had a hard time pre-pandemic. So I think we shouldn't mix both things, because most retailers that went belly up were already in a very tough place before the pandemic in March.
You're lucky because of how your locations work, that they're standalone locations, so people can actually go to them, and you're not a slave of a mall or anything like that, especially at the beginning of the COVID stuff.
That's exactly it, Ernie. And you said it before. You got to cut your expenses, right? So Rubino Shoes is a low-cost operator. I don't pay crazy rent to be at Carrefour Laval or Galerie d'Anjou. So already my rent, because I didn't get the CERB, the CECRA program, because we're a chain, so we didn't qualify for it. But still, we were able to survive because our rents were very low compared to mall-based store, and the malls remained closed for longer. So for us, it was like a plus. I mean, our stores were the only option in Granby, because let's say the mall was closed and our store that's a standalone, was open. So, I mean, we've seen tremendous growth. So some stores are doing phenomenal. Others, it's a little harder, but the online portion makes up for it.
And did you change your locations any, to suit the people when to come to the stores?
Absolutely. I mean, like when we started opening our stores, we wanted to be a destination. We wanted to be easy access, that you can basically park in front of the door and walk in. That was always the goal. I mean, we didn't believe that mall-based stores were the way to go. We wanted bigger stores. So our stores are 5,000 to 8,000 square feet. So you could imagine the rent per square foot in a mall. That model wouldn't be possible. I mean, we'd be selling, but just to survive and pay our rents. So, I mean, for us, that's not the goal. We're working to pay for our building. As long as the mortgage is paid, and that's how we move forward.
Yeah, because the customers have changed their behavior a bit over the course of time. 91% of the customers have changed their behavior habits, and they're just looking for different things in the store. They want clean. They want to see the inventory in the store. They want to make sure potentially that the business is local. You have good quality at a decent price, and you seem to fit the bill all across the board, which is...
Well, you brought up a good point. Buying local was a huge thing for us. And we've seen a lot of people come back to our stores. You're right. People are looking for a good, a good price. I think we're price sensitive. I think that the fact that our stores are box stores, so you can grab your size and try them on. It's not a boutique where you have to wait in line because there's only 2 people that can come in because it's a small store. So you could just walk in, grab your box, your shoe size, try them on. So I think that model just works, And also, it's been hard because a lot of our employees weren't coming back to work, especially the part-timers. So we're running on minimal staff. So being a box store where you could just come in and grab your shoe size and sit down and try them on, and you don't really need that interaction with an employee, that's another thing that was positive for us.
Because, with the people going online, you said they come in, they take 3-4 pairs of shoes, try them on, and they leave with 1, maybe 2 pairs of shoes. But when people order online, they'll order possibly 3 of the same pair of shoes, but different sizes, just to make sure that they fit, because they realize, hey, I can return them, and it's for free. I can return them. There's no restocking charge or anything of that nature. So that's good for you. And some of the consumers, say, you know what? I'm not going to return it. I don't have the time. Or they forget about it. They put it in their closet. So that just makes more sales for you. Am I right to make that assumption?
Well, yes and no. I mean, since we've put the returns free, we haven't seen a spike in our returns, and we haven't seen a spike in multiple items on one order of the same SKU, but let's say 3 different sizes. We haven't seen a lot of that. I mean, to be honest with you, it's not an issue for us. Maybe we're lucky. I think our returns are under 2-3%. So
that's great.
It's really great. Business is good. I mean, thank God. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but all I know is, you know what, bring it on. There's nothing that we can't do. And this is why it's, if we need to, we'll adapt again. And that's how we do. We have this great ability to turn around on a dime because we're a very small group. We don't have a million people here working at the headquarters.
And it's a family-run business with your brother and sister. Is your dad still active?
Absolutely. He was just about to barge in my office. And yes, but he's more involved into the real estate portion of the business, not so much on the retail side.
And your brother and sister?
My sister does a lot of the marketing and the content creation today. She's 5 years younger. So, I mean, maybe she has a better understanding of what people her age are looking for. My brother is my twin. He's more into the finance guy. So we have very different roles. And I think that's part of our success is that we don't mix. I mean, we have these board meetings, but we don't mix. So I take care of my department and he takes care of his department very well. And this is why we've been succeeding. Nobody steps on each other's toes. We've got good shoes on, Ernie.
Of course.
And we're chatting with Angelo Rubino from Rubino Shoes. His one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur is on the way. But first, dealing with the banks. Let's welcome back Patrick Sullivan, trustee at FL, to talk about that and alternate sources of financing as well. Welcome back, Patrick.
Happy to be with you guys.
So, Ernie, I'll let you take the lead here, but let's start, I guess, by just why it's important in these times to just keep those lines of communication with your banks open.
I think that the key thing, like you say, is communication. Bankers for the last 6 months have been very tolerant for a number of reasons, actually. The pandemic forced a lot of shutdowns. Bankers were maybe not in a written format, but were asked to be very helpful in financial problem times. So there were a lot of deferrals, a lot of forbearance agreements that were put in place, deferred capital payments, as well as obviously all the various government fundings, programs, and grants that were put out there. So banks have been very tolerant. Originally, this was technically for a period of 3 months, which was then extended to a period of 6 months. But bear in mind one thing. The fiscal year ends of banks are October 31st. And the word out on the street is that after that, there are going to be a lot more coming down on companies that are going through financial difficulties.
So what should those companies do that are going through financial difficulties to make sure their banker does not come down on them?
Well, part of the answer is you have to communicate. You have to be on the up and up with your banker. Provide the bank with financial information that makes sense, because they're looking at obviously ratios, and they're seeing, and cash flow is the key. So obviously the whole system makes that you want to collect your monies faster than you're paying your suppliers, which brings me to these, what types of alternate financing are out there. One which comes to mind that's a simple one is factoring your receivables, where you will be in a position to collect your monies fairly quickly, or a good percentage fairly quickly, which will enable you to, sustain that cash flow, and again, pay your payables slowly, so you'll be able to avoid having serious problems during the pandemic. After the aftermath, there's going to be a lot of financing under asset-based financing programs, where the assets are given as collateral, the monies are advanced on a weekly basis as opposed to a monthly basis. Ratios are a lot less looked at. So there's going to be other ways to hopefully finance companies that will be able to obviously survive the pandemic, but also companies that will sustain rapid growth once we're out of this. And there will be companies that are going to be very successful because they have modified, like our tonight's guest, modifying the way you're doing your business in order to capture, even through tough times, the possibility of increasing your business and making money and making more money.
It just makes you more efficient. When you're looking at these tough times, you have to become more efficient. You have to work with what you have in order to make the money that you were, or try to make the money that you were making before. Sometimes you'll be successful, sometimes you won't, but at least you got to try. But some businesses are kind of forced to close as well during these things. Not close down, but close. For a short period of time. And I know certain companies have something called business interruption insurance, and this is something, can you address business interruption insurance?
Well,
Tell everybody what it is.
Well, business interruption, obviously, normally people think that, they have insurance policies on business interruption, which means either a fire hazard or a breach of machinery. But, years ago when we went through the SRAS, not pandemic, but the SRAS problem, many insurance companies, Canadian insurance companies, had included in their business interruption clause a clause pertaining to SRAS and pandemic situations. A lot of people don't know that inclusion might be there in their insurance policy because it doesn't come to mind right away to look at your insurance policies to see, am I insured in the event of a pandemic? So one of the recommendations is obviously entrepreneurs should have a serious look at that, because in many cases, they may have coverage. It's just a question of finding the fine line that says you're covered and under what circumstances. There will be a lot of jurisprudence coming out of this eventually, because people are going to challenge the verbiage that they have in their insurance policies and the enclosures.
Thanks very much, Patrick Sullivan, trustee at FL, on dealing with your bank. And lastly, we turn to Angelo Rubino of Rubino Shoes. And Angelo, please, your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur.
So I think if you want to succeed in business today, you need to be authentic, which means to be consistently open, honest, ethical, genuine, be real, stay humble, and be grateful for what you have. And in these crazy times, always try to find a silver lining into any and every situation.
That's excellent advice. Angelo Rubino, Vice President of Rubino Shoes. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode.
Thanks for having me. It was an honor.
And thanks very much to Patrick as well. And Ernie, for your first co-host job. Well done, sir. Thanks very much for joining me this week. Don't forget today'sentrepreneur.org for over a decade worth of entrepreneur profiles. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you here in 2 weeks.
This has been a production of TNKR Media. Good talk.